Well, I'm a people person and I enjoy relationships, especially long-term relationships. And so my guest today has accolades like no one's business in and of himself. But I get to say that we worked together in 1998, bringing Billy Graham into the city of Tampa. And that was such a special time. We worked on it for almost 2 years prior to the crusade. And so Eddie Calcines is a political activist. He's an influencer. He used to be a bad boy, then he turned into a Jesus boy. But you are going to be fascinated and touched as we talk about his life and his legacy and all the great things that God has done, is doing, and will do in his life. Thank you so much, Eddie, for being here.
It's my pleasure.
It's good to see you.
Thank you.
You've been busy
Likewise. Writing and doing a bunch of other things,
yeah,
but yes.
raising babies and grandbabies.
That's the most important thing, the grandchild.
It is. And I want to talk about him a lot.
Yes,
your beloved Luke.
Absolutely.
Yeah, miracle boy.
Absolutely.
Okay, but before we introduce the viewers to Luke and even to the books, first I want them to understand you, your story, some of the things you went through. It. Yes, it's in your books, it's weaved in and out, but talk about life until you were 14.
By the way, I was a bad boy, but if you turn to a Jesus boy, but if you talk to my wife, that's not quite correct. Okay,
no,
she'd probably say that there's still a bad boy there. Okay.
Mercy would not say that about you.
Especially in traffic and in other moments, right?
Well,
but it is interesting because I think all of us need to be challenged at certain times to be able to come back to that vertical perspective when the horizontal perspective comes upon us. But regarding the racing years, the growing up, born and raised in the city of Cienfuegos, which was just 50 kilometers away from the Bay of Pigs. 4.5 years old when Castro regime comes in, and I see a beautiful family begin to dissolve. 17 brothers and sisters on one side, 11 on the other. And it was a beautiful place to be, and it became a dark place for all of us. And so, blessedly, we had a family member that had come to the United States and was able to get us out of Cuba in 1969. So I got to experience the first 10 years, which is what the first book is about, the first 10 years of communism. And so it was I felt that it was very important to reveal that truth. Probably still the only book written from a child's perspective, non-political in a sense. It's just revealing the truth about what this regime did.
Yeah.
And ultimately, coming to America in 1969, going to Milwaukee, Wisconsin, as the only Hispanic in the whole school, and the only, talk about harshness. I come out of the airport and it was Christmas Eve, New Year's Eve. And so an hour and 27 minutes into 1970, we landed in Milwaukee. And of course, there's 10 inches of snow on the ground and 10 below zero.
And you'd never seen snow.
And Jen, let me tell you, I've never seen snow. So when those doors opened and that cold came in, I froze physically, psychologically, and in every way. Thank goodness for the M&Ms that I saw in the stores on the inside, right?
Yeah.
We've been eating hard bread and sugar water for so long. A child becomes immune to all of that. But ultimately, it was a blessing to be there, go to Milwaukee and spend 5 years in Milwaukee. The American me was born in Milwaukee.
Wow.
But I always felt the passion to reveal the story of the violations of human rights and all of the conditions that currently exist 60 plus years later in Cuba. But I celebrate the goodness of coming to America. And although it was difficult at times, all I needed to see was an American flag, to bring hope upon my heart, because you're 14 years old. My face is full of acne, and I don't look like the rest of the kids.
Yeah.
Most of the kids were of Scandinavian and German descent, and so I was different for sure.
You were an island boy.
I was an island boy and didn't know how to speak English, so my biggest trouble was saying Rice Krispies, which I still can't say it right today.
You just did. How did you used to say
Rice
it?
Krispies.
Rice Krispies.
You need to. Yeah, see, I know you envy our
I love it.
Our accent a
It's
little bit.
beautiful. I just want. I know there's people that are watching, and it's hard when you are at a place during your formative years. I mean, you at 14, you were an adult. According to the Bible, you would have been already bat mitzvahed, bar mitzvahed. And so you came with the memories, the pain, the hurt, I'm sure anger, unforgiveness. It's hard at 14 to have the emotional intelligence to resolve. And I know we're going to share a little bit about how in your writing you've been able to process that. And then, of course, when you got born again. But before we do, I want to show a real quick clip about the salmon run.
Awesome.
So that's a very beautiful, somber clip honoring your parents and your grandparents and the price they paid to get you here and to get your family here. And
it's interesting you say that because that's very accurate. That book was written to honor them and to reveal their struggle to the world. And so, absolutely, that's what motivated me to write the story. And ultimately, still today, this many years later, 11, 12 years later, I stand firm upon the convictions of my heart to reveal the truth about some of these conditions that we have to deal with, even in today's time.
Yeah.
But that story, that video was very revealing of what really happened. I grew up across the street, essentially my grandparents' home. And so I even wrote a book about a rooftop clubhouse. It was an avocado tree where I grew up, and it was a special place. To leave them and was a very difficult experience.
Yeah.
But blessedly, we came to America.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I appreciate your perspective because in all of the dismal times, the dark times, the destructive times, you still maintain that the goodness of God was all around you and was absolutely perfect, and you focus on everything that went right in the journey.
Yeah, that's a good point of view, and I think that is, if anybody that knows me knows that is what I choose to do. It is a choice that we have to make.
Yeah.
I think that some of us, unfortunately, dwell upon the sinking sand of vulnerability and the conditions that we have to face in the secular world. But the Lord teaches us that, our hope is in the Lord. And so even though I was young, I really did not know much about, I'd grown up in the Catholic Church, Jen. And so coming to Tampa in 1974, eventually meeting my wife, Mercy was in the Methodist Church, and I had not experienced a whole lot of church up until that time. And so
Nothing like a lady to get you
how
in the
about
house
that, right?
of God,
Yeah,
right?
isn't that interesting? 1976. Can
Yeah.
you imagine? Yeah, and it was I began to walk in a different way, and what that does is that it brings out the goodness in the person's heart.
Yeah.
I think all of us have it, even in other things that we will talk about with troubled youth and so forth.
Yeah.
But in this particular case, sure, that was highly instrumental. And what you say is correct. I think that it is important to keep a positive look at that light at the end of the tunnel,
Yeah.
not as a gorilla with a flashlight, but as the light of hope that we have in the Lord.
Yeah.